The stars looked cold through the viewing window of the warship Crimson Fang. Taiyang stood before the glass, his massive frame casting shadows across the metal floor. His fur glowed deep red, the color of anger and pain. Behind him, 20 Vrakshi warriors waited in silence. They knew better than to speak when their alpha was like this. 3 months. It had been 3 months since his cubs disappeared. 3 months of searching, tracking, following every small clue across the dark space. 3 months of hope slowly dying in his chest. Nari, his mate, stood beside him. Her fur pulsed with deep purple, the color of grief so heavy it could break bones. She had not spoken in days. She only stared ahead, waiting for the moment when they would find answers, when they would find justice. A hologram flickered to life in the center of the room. It showed a space station floating in the darkness. Frontier Station 7, the humans called it. Small, weak, far from any military protection. Hyejin, the beta warrior, stepped forward. Her voice was calm but cold. She pointed at the hologram with one clawed finger. We found debris from their ship near this sector. Human salvage ships were in the area at the same time. The timeline matches perfectly. Taeyang's claws extended slowly. The sound of them sliding from his fingers filled the quiet room. Every warrior in the pack knew what that sound meant. Blood would be spilled today. They took the ship, another warrior said. His name was Quan, and his voice shook with rage. They took it and left the cubs to die in space. What kind of species does this? The Vrakshi had rules, ancient rules that every cub learned from birth. Protect the young, all young, no matter what species they belong to. The idea of leaving children to die alone in the cold darkness was the worst crime their culture knew, and the humans had done exactly that. Or so they believed. Taeyang turned to face his pack. His eyes glowed in the dim light. When he spoke, his voice was hard as stone. We go in. We find proof of what they did. And then we make them pay. By our laws, by our honor, we will have justice for Minho, Yejun, and Chaeyoung. The names of his cubs hung in the air. Every warrior bowed their heads for a moment. They had all known the little ones. Minho with his curious questions. Yejun, who loved to climb. Chaeyoung, who laughed like music. Gone, all gone. Nari made a sound low and broken. It was the Vrakshi cry of a mother who had lost her children. Taeyang moved to her side and pressed his forehead against hers. Their fur colors mixed red and purple swirling together. We will make this right, he whispered to her. I swear it on my blood. On my honor. On everything we are. The ship moved forward, engines humming with power. The Crimson Fang was built for war. Its weapons could tear apart a station like Frontier 7 in minutes. The humans would not even have time to call for help. Inside the station, alarms suddenly screamed to life. Commander Hajun jerked awake in his chair. His screen flashed red with warnings. Unknown vessel. Weapons armed. Shields penetrated. His blood went cold. All hands to emergency stations. He shouted into the communication system. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. People ran through the corridors. Families grabbed their children and rushed toward the emergency shelters. Station security pulled on their gear with shaking hands. They were scientists and engineers, not soldiers. The station had almost no defenses. Hajun tried to open a communication channel to the attacking ship. Static. He tried again. Nothing. They were not answering. They were not even listening. Sir, I am reading life signs, his officer said, voice tight with fear. 22 of them, large, very large. They are Vrakshi. Hajun's mind raced. The Vrakshi were warriors. Strong, dangerous. Why would they attack a research station? What could they possibly want here? Medical Officer So Young burst into the command center. Her face was pale. Commander, I cannot reach Do-hyun. He is not answering his communication device. The science wing is locked down. Do-hyun. Hajun's stomach dropped. The xenobiologist was probably asleep in his quarters. He worked strange hours, often staying up all night with his research. He would have no idea what was happening. Keep trying to reach him, Hajun ordered. Get everyone to the shelters. Seal all sections except the docking bay. Maybe we can contain them there. But even as he said it, he knew it was useless. The Vrakshi were not a species you contained. They were hunters, trackers. Once they decided on a target, nothing stopped them. The docking bay doors exploded inward. Metal screamed and twisted. Smoke filled the air. Through the smoke came the Vrakshi warriors, their crystalline fur catching the emergency lights. They moved like shadows, fast and silent. Taeyang led the way. His senses reached out, searching, hunting. He could smell hundreds of humans on this station. Fear, panic, good. They should be afraid. But he was not here for all of them. He was here for answers. He was here for the ones who had taken his ship, who had left his babies to die. The pack spread out through the corridors. Station security tried to stop them. It was like trying to stop a storm. The Vrakshi did not kill them, but they pushed them aside easily. Weapons clattered to the floor. Humans pressed themselves against walls, too terrified to move. Yejin paused. Her head tilted to one side. Her nostrils flared as she took in the scents around her. Alpha, she said quietly. Her voice was strange, confused. I smell something. Taeyang moved to her side. He breathed in deeply, and then he froze. No, it could not be. His mind was playing tricks. Grief was making him imagine things. He breathed in again. Deeper this time. The scent was faint but clear. Young Vrakshi. Cubs. His cubs. Nari made a sound like a wounded animal. She had smelled it too. Her legs nearly gave out beneath her. Other warriors caught her, held her up. They are alive, she whispered. Our babies are alive. The pack stood in shock. Then like one creature they moved, following the scent, running now, not walking. Hope burned in their chests, painful and bright. But mixed with the cub scent was something else, human, very close. One human was near the cubs. Too near. Taeyang's hope twisted into fury again. They had his cubs. They were keeping them prisoner, using them for experiments maybe, or worse, the science wing. The scent led them to the science wing, through sealed doors that they tore open with their bare claws, down corridors lined with laboratories and research equipment. And then they stood before a simple door. A living quarters door? The scent was strongest here. Their cubs. Right behind this door, Taeyang did not knock. He pressed the control panel and the door slid open. 20 Vrakshi warriors crowded into the doorway. Weapons ready, fury in their hearts, ready to tear apart whoever had dared to take their young, and then they saw it. And every single warrior stopped breathing. The room was warm. Soft lights glowed on the walls. The exact color wavelength that Vrakshi cubs needed for healthy sleep. Toys were scattered across the floor. Not human toys. Vrakshi toys. Food bowls sat in the corner, and the scent from them was perfect. Proper Vrakshi nutrition. In the center of the room was a sleeping platform, modified, made larger and softer, and on that platform sat a human male. His eyes were closed. His breathing was slow and deep. He looked exhausted, like he had not slept properly in days. On his chest, curled up together in a small pile of peace and warmth, were 3 Vrakshi cubs. Minho's head rested under the human's chin. Yejun had one small paw clutching the human's shirt. Chaeyoung was sprawled across them both, her mouth open, drooling slightly in her sleep. Their fur glowed soft blue, the color of complete safety, the color of perfect love and trust, the color that Vrakshi cubs only showed when they felt absolutely, totally protected. Taeyang's claws retracted. His weapon fell from his hand and hit the floor with a quiet thud. This human, this small, fragile human, was not a captor, was not an enemy. This human was pack. The silence in the doorway lasted forever. 20 Vrakshi warriors stood frozen, staring at something they could not understand. Their minds tried to make sense of what their eyes were seeing. Taeyang felt like the floor had disappeared beneath him. He had come here ready to kill, ready to destroy, ready to make the humans pay for the worst crime he could imagine. But his cubs were not dead. They were not suffering. They were sleeping, peaceful, safe, glowing with the blue light of complete trust. And the human, this small creature with no claws, no fur, no natural weapons. He held the cubs like they were precious, like they were his own. His arms were wrapped around them protectively, even in sleep. Nari pushed past the warriors. She did not care about weapons or threats or anything else. Her children were right there. Right there. After 3 months of thinking they were dead, they were alive. She made that sound again. The mother's cry. It came from deep in her chest, a mix of grief and joy and relief so powerful it hurt. It was a sound that every Vrakshi knew from birth. The sound of a mother finding her lost young. The human's eyes snapped open. Do-yun woke from deep sleep to find his room full of aliens. Huge aliens. Armed aliens. Their fur burned with colors he had learned to recognize from his months of study. Red, orange, purple. Colors of rage and grief and confusion. His first thought was not for himself. He looked down at the cubs on his chest. Still sleeping, but starting to stir from the noise. His arms tightened around them automatically. "Please," he said. His voice came out rough from sleep. He spoke in Vrakshi, the words clumsy but clear. "Please do not scare them. They have been through enough." The warriors stared at him. The human had spoken their language. Badly, yes, with a terrible accent, but he had spoken it. He knew their words. Nari could not wait anymore. She dropped her weapon with a clatter and rushed forward. She fell to her knees beside the platform. Her claws were retracted. Her hands reached out, shaking. Do-Yun tensed. He did not know who these Vrakshi were, did not know if they meant harm, but he knew the sound she had made. He had heard it in recordings during his research. A mother's cry. Minho woke first. The oldest cub lifted his head and blinked sleepily. He saw the Vrakshi woman kneeling beside them. For a moment he looked confused. Then recognition hit him like a wave. His small body went rigid. His fur exploded into bright gold, the color of overwhelming joy. He scrambled off Do-Hyun's chest and threw himself at Nari. "Mama!" The word came out as a squeal. "Mama, mama, mama!" Nari caught him and pulled him close. She buried her face in his fur and wept, great shaking sobs that made her whole body tremble. Her arms wrapped around her son like she would never let go again. Yejun and Chae-young woke to the sound of their brother's voice. They saw their mother. They saw the other familiar faces crowding the doorway. Pack, their pack. The pack they thought they had lost forever. They tumbled off the platform and ran to her. Nari gathered them in, all three cubs pressed against her. She made soft sounds in her throat, soothing sounds while tears ran down her face. Do-Hyun sat on the platform alone now. His arms felt empty. He watched the reunion and felt his own eyes burning. He was happy for them. Of course he was. This was what he had wanted. To find their family. But the cubs had been his whole world for 3 months. Waking up every few hours to feed them. Learning their language. Singing them to sleep. Worrying when they got sick. Celebrating when they learned something new. And now they were going home. As they should. As they deserved. He wiped his eyes quickly, trying to be quiet about it. Taeyang watched everything. He saw the cubs recognize their mother, saw their joy, saw Nari hold them like she would never let them go, and he saw the human, sitting alone, his arms empty now, his eyes wet, not making a sound, not demanding attention, just watching with a face full of pain and happiness mixed together. The alpha moved forward slowly. The other warriors parted to let him through. He crossed the room until he stood before the human. Up close, the creature was even smaller than he had thought. Fragile. Weak. No match for a Vrakshi in any way that mattered for war, but this human had done something that mattered more than... Where Do-Hyun looked up at the massive warrior, the alpha's fur was still showing red, though it was starting to fade to other colors now. Orange. Yellow. Blues starting to appear at the edges. The alpha spoke. His voice was deep and rough. Each word came slowly like they were hard to say. "You kept them alive?" Do-Hyun nodded. He did not know what else to do. "You kept them safe." Another nod. Taeyang's voice broke on the next words. He who had led warriors into 100 battles, who never showed weakness, could not control his voice now. "Why?" Do-Hyun blinked. The question seemed strange to him. Why? What kind of question was why? Because they needed help, he said simply. Still in Vrakshi, though his words were slow and careful. Because they were alone and scared. Because no one should die alone in the dark. Because they were children. He paused, then added more quietly. Because I know what it is like to be alone. The room was silent, except for Nari's soft sounds and the cubs' happy chirps. Hyejin moved to the side, examining the quarters with a warrior's eye. She saw everything. The modified lights. The proper food. The toys that matched Vrakshi development stages. The research notes scattered on a desk, filled with careful observations. She picked up a data pad and started reading. Her eyes went wide. She looked at Do-Hyun, then at Taeyang. "Alpha," she said quietly. "You need to see this." Taeyang took the data pad. It was a journal. The human's journal. He read entries from 3 months ago. The day the human found the derelict ship. The day he brought 3 starving cubs aboard. The days of desperate research, trying to figure out what they needed to survive. Entry after entry. Night after night. The human had barely slept. He documented everything. What the cubs ate. How they slept. What sounds scared them? What made them feel safe? He had taught himself their language from a damaged database. He had modified his own quarters to suit their needs. There were videos attached to some entries. Taeyang pressed one. It showed Do-hyun at 3 a.m, dark circles under his eyes holding a crying Chaeyoung, singing to her. A Vrakshi lullaby, badly pronounced but sung with such gentle patience. Singing it over and over until the cub finally calmed down and fell asleep on his shoulder. Another video, Do-hyun trying to prepare proper Vrakshi food, failing, trying again, and again, and again, burning himself on hot equipment, not stopping until he got it right. Another entry. Text this time, dated from 2 weeks ago. The human had written, I sent another message into Vrakshi space today. Still no response. I do not know if anyone is looking for them. I do not know if anyone even knows they are missing. But I will keep trying. I will keep them safe until someone comes, even if no one ever comes. Even if it is just me and them forever. They will be loved. They will be protected. I promise. Taeyang's hands shook. The datapad nearly fell from his fingers. This human, this stranger from another species, had sacrificed months of his life, had given up sleep, comfort, his own needs, had taught himself an alien language, had researched alien biology, had sent message after message hoping to find the cub's family, all for cubs that were not his own. Would never be his own, just because they needed someone, just because they were alone. The Alpha felt something break inside his chest. He had come here with rage, with the intention of destroying everyone on this station. He had been so sure of their guilt, so certain they deserved punishment, and instead he found this. Kindness so profound it made him want to weep. Compassion that crossed the boundaries of species. Love that asked for nothing in return. Behind them, voices started shouting. Commander Hajun had arrived with station security. He saw the Vrakshi warriors in Do-hyun's quarters and his blood ran cold. Get away from him, Hajun shouted. He had a weapon, though his hands shook. Let him go! So-young pushed past him. She saw Do-hyun sitting on the platform unharmed. Saw the cubs with Nari. Saw the reunion happening. Her mind raced, trying to understand. Commander, wait, she said, grabbing Hajun's arm. Look, just look, Hajun looked. He saw Nari holding the cubs, crying with joy. Saw the other warriors standing down, their weapons lowered. Saw Taeyang holding what looked like Do-hyun's datapad, his face full of emotion. Do-hyun stood up slowly. He was not hurt. He was crying, but they were not tears of fear. He looked at Hajun and shook his head slightly. No, do not fight. It is okay. Taeyang turned to face the humans. He stood tall, shoulders back. An Alpha addressing strangers. But his voice, when he spoke, was not full of threat. It was full of something much more powerful. Respect. We came here believing you had committed a great crime, he said. Each word was formal, careful. We came for revenge. We came to destroy, he paused. His fur shifted colors, reds and purples fading away, blues and golds taking their place. Instead, we found something we did not expect. We found compassion. We found sacrifice. We found love. He looked at Do-hyun. This human saved our cubs. Not for reward, not for honor. Simply because they needed saving. Taeyang took a deep breath. What he was about to do went against every instinct of pride. But it was right. It was deserved. It was necessary. The Alpha of the Crimson Fang Pack knelt before a human. Every Vrakshi warrior in the room gasped. An Alpha never knelt, never. 3 days passed like a strange dream. The warship Crimson Fang stayed docked at Frontier Station 7. The warriors who had come for revenge now walked the corridors in peace. Humans and Vrakshi passed each other carefully at first, then with growing comfort. Do-hyun spent those 3 days in a fog of emotions he could not name. The cubs stayed with their parents as they should. But every few hours, one or all of them would come looking for him. Minyo would climb into his lap while he worked. Chaeyoung would fall asleep on his feet. Yejun would bring him things, small gifts, the way cubs showed affection. Nari watched this with eyes that understood. She had seen the pain in Do-hyun's face when the cubs first ran to her. She knew what sacrifice looked like, what love looked like. On the third evening, she found Do-hyun sitting alone in the station's observation deck. He was staring out at the stars, his face tired and sad. She sat down beside him without asking. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Nari reached out and placed one large clawed hand on his shoulder. Gentle, careful not to hurt him. They love you, she said softly in Vrakshi. She had learned that he understood the language better than he spoke it. Do-hyun nodded. He did not trust his voice. You love them, she continued. Another nod. In our culture, Nari said slowly, family is not only about blood. It is about who raises you, who protects you, who teaches you, who holds you when you cry. She paused. You did all of this. You are their family as much as I am. Do-hyun's eyes burned. He blinked hard, trying not to cry in front of her. I do not want to take them from you, Nari said, and her voice was thick with emotion now too. You saved them. You gave them 3 months of love and safety when I could not. You learned our language for them. You changed your whole life for them. Her claws tightened slightly on his shoulder. How can I take them away from someone who loves them so much? They are your children, Do-hyun managed to say. His voice cracked. They belong with you, with their real family. You are real family, Nari said firmly. The Cubs know this. Taeyang knows this. I know this. She was quiet for a moment. But I understand. You think you must let them go. You think it is the right thing? Do-hyun wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. Is it not? Nari made a sound that was almost like a laugh, but sad. The right thing is not always the kind thing. Not always the best thing. She turned to look at him fully. What if I told you there was another way? Before Do-hyun could answer, small voices called out from the doorway. The Cubs had found them. They came running across the observation deck, their fur bright with happiness. They piled onto Do-hyun and Nari both, making happy sounds, demanding attention. Taeyang appeared in the doorway. He watched his mate and his cubs and this human all sitting together. His fur glowed with warm colors, contentment, peace. Commander Hajun was with him. The two had spent the past 3 days talking, learning about each other, building understanding. Hajun had been terrified at first, but Taeyang had proven himself to be more than a warrior. He was wise, honorable, someone who could be trusted. Is it decided then? Hajun asked quietly. Taeyang nodded. The ceremony will be tomorrow. We have prepared everything. Do-hyun looked up, confused. Ceremony? What ceremony? Taeyang walked over to them. He knelt down so he was at Do-hyun's eye level. Around them, the Cubs played, climbing over all the adults like they were playground equipment. In our culture, the Alpha said, there is a ritual. It is rare, very rare. It happens when someone outside the pack does something so important, so meaningful that they become pack. Not honorary, not symbolic, truly pack. Do-hyun's heart started beating faster. I do not understand. You saved our Cubs, Taeyang said. You became their family when they had no one. By our oldest laws, this creates a bond that cannot be broken. He reached out and placed his hand on Do-hyun's other shoulder, matching Nari's gesture. Tomorrow we will make it official. You will be marked as pack. You will have all the rights and responsibilities of a pack member. But I am human, Do-hyun whispered. I am not Vrakshi. I do not have fur. I cannot speak the language well. I do not know your customs. You learned enough, Nari said. You learned what mattered. How to care, how to protect, how to love without asking for anything back. She smiled, showing her teeth. It should have been frightening, but somehow it was not. These are the most important things. The rest can be taught. What does this mean? Do-hyun asked. Being pack? What does it mean for me? For the Cubs? Taeyang and Nari exchanged looks. Then Taeyang spoke. It means the Cubs will have 2 homes. They will spend time with us on our ship. They will learn Vrakshi ways. They will know their birth pack. He paused. But they will also spend time here with you. They will learn human ways. They will know their other family. It means you will not lose them, Nari added softly, and they will not lose you. Do-hyun felt something break open in his chest. Relief, joy, disbelief, all mixed together. You would do this? You would share them? After everything? After everything, Taeyang said firmly. It is the only thing that makes sense. The Cubs are bonded to you, truly bonded. Breaking that bond would harm them. We will not harm our own Cubs to ease our pride. Besides, Nari said, and there was warmth in her voice now, they are not the only ones who need you. I think we all need you. Our pack has been growing comfortable, set in our ways, Maybe we need a human to remind us what it means to be truly brave. The cubs had stopped playing. They were watching the adults now, understanding that something important was happening. Minho climbed into Do-hyun's lap and looked up at him with wide eyes. "You stay?" the cub asked in his small voice. "You still be our family?" Do-hyun looked at the cub, at Nari and Taeyang, at the other warriors who had gathered in the doorway to watch, at Commander Hajun, who was smiling, at So-young, who had appeared beside Hajun, her eyes wet. He thought about his life before the cubs, quiet, lonely, safe, empty, and he thought about his life after, full of noise and mess and worry and exhaustion and more love than he had ever imagined possible. "Yes," he whispered. Then louder, "Yes, I will stay. I will be your family, always." The cubs exploded into happy sounds. They jumped on him, licking his face, their fur blazing with joy. Nari laughed. Taeyang's stern face cracked into something that might have been a smile. The warriors in the doorway made approving sounds, their fur shifting to warm, happy colors. Hajun stepped forward. "This will change everything, you know. This station will become a meeting place, a bridge between humans and Vrakshi. There will be more ships coming, more families, more exchanges of culture and knowledge." Taeyang stood and offered his hand to Hajun. The human gesture looked strange with claws, but Hajun took it without hesitation. They shook, two leaders making a pact. "Then we will make it work," Taeyang said. "For them." He looked at the cubs, who were still celebrating on top of Do-hyun. "For all the cubs, human and Vrakshi and whatever other species come." "For the future," Hajun agreed. That night, the station's dining hall was filled with both species. Human food and Vrakshi food sat side by side on tables. Children played together while adults talked and laughed. Barriers that had existed for centuries started to crack and fall. Do-hyun sat with the cubs curled around him on one side and Nari on the other. Taeyang was across the table, telling stories of their homeworld. So-young was asking 1,000 questions about Vrakshi medicine. Hyejin was teaching some human engineers about Vrakshi technology. And for the first time in 2 years, since he had lost his own family in that accident, Do-hyun felt like he was home. Not because of the place, not because of the food or the comfort or the safety, because of the people around him, the family he had found, the family that had found him, Pak. The ceremony took place in the largest room on the station. Every human who could fit came to watch. Every Vrakshi warrior stood in a circle around the center. It was a mix of both cultures, a blend of traditions that had never happened before. Do-hyun stood in the middle of the circle, wearing clothes that Nari had made for him. Human style, but with Vrakshi symbols woven into the fabric. His heart pounded in his chest. He did not know what to expect. No human had ever done this before. The cubs sat with Hyejin at the edge of the circle. They wanted to run to Do-hyun, but Hyejin held them gently, whispering that they had to wait. This was important. This was sacred. Taeyang stepped forward first. He carried a small bowl filled with something that glowed faintly blue. The ceremonial scent marker, Do-hyun had learned. In Vrakshi culture, scent was everything. It told you who was Pak, who was family, who could be trusted. The Alpha spoke in formal Vrakshi, his voice carrying through the room. Do-hyun understood maybe half of it. Something about honor, about family, about bonds that could not break. Then Taeyang switched to simpler words, ones he knew Do-hyun would understand. Do-hyun of Earth. You came into our lives when we were lost in grief. You saved what we thought was gone. You gave us back our future. He paused. Now we give you ours. You are Pak. You are family. You are ours as we are yours. Taeyang dipped his fingers into the bowl. The blue substance clung to his claws. He reached out and placed his hand on Do-hyun's shoulder, leaving a glowing mark on the fabric and skin beneath. By this mark, all Vrakshi will know you are protected. You are Pak. To harm you is to harm us. To honor you is to honor us. Nari stepped forward next. She had tears running down her face, but her voice was steady. You were a stranger. You could have ignored the cubs. You could have called for someone else to help. You could have done the minimum and walked away. She placed her own mark on his other shoulder, but you did not. You gave them everything. You loved them as your own. For this, we give you a place in our pack that can never be taken away. One by one, each warrior came forward. Each placed a mark somewhere on Do-hyun, his arms, his back, his chest. Each spoke words of acceptance and respect. Some marks glowed bright, others were fainter, but together they created a pattern. Hyejin came last before the cubs. She knelt before Dohyun and looked up at him with fierce eyes. "I doubted you," she said quietly. "When we first came here, I thought you must be a threat. I thought no one could care for cubs not their own." She placed her mark over his heart. "You taught me I was wrong. You taught us all." "Thank you." Then it was the cubs' turn. Hyejin released them and they scrambled forward, nearly tripping over each other in their excitement. They were too young to carry the marking substance, so Taeyang helped them. Each cub placed a small paw print on Dohyun's hands. Minho went first, serious and careful. Yejun went next, laughing. Chaeyoung went last and then climbed up Dohyun's chest to nuzzle his face, leaving glowing smudges on his cheeks. The room erupted in sound. Rakshi howled in approval. Humans cheered. The noise was deafening and beautiful. Dohyun stood there covered in glowing marks, cubs climbing on him surrounded by people from two worlds. He felt the weight of it all, the responsibility, the love, the trust. And he felt something else too. Peace. For the first time in so long. Peace. The ceremony ended, but the celebration went on for hours. Food was shared. Stories were told. Music from both cultures mixed together in strange and wonderful harmonies. Dohyun found himself pulled into conversations with warriors who wanted to know about Earth, with humans who wanted to know about Vrakshi. He tried to answer everything, though his Vrakshi was still clumsy and his head spun from exhaustion. Finally, late into the station's night cycle, things began to quiet down. The cubs had fallen asleep hours ago, piled on a cushion in the corner. Dohyun sat beside them, one hand resting on Minho's back. So-young came and sat beside him. She looked at the glowing marks on his skin, still faintly visible even after hours. "You know this changes everything, right?" she said. "I know," Dohyun replied. "You are going to have Vrakshi coming to visit all the time. The cubs will be traveling back and forth. Your life will never be quiet again." "I know," he said again, but he was smiling. So-young shook her head, but she was smiling too. "I tried to warn you about getting attached. 3 months ago, I told you not to bond with them. I told you it would hurt when they left." "You were right," Dohyun admitted. "It did hurt. It still hurts a little knowing they are not here all the time. But," So-young prompted, "but it is worth it. Every second of hurt is worth it for the joy they bring." He looked at the sleeping cubs. "I would rather love them and feel pain than never have loved them at all." So-young was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You know what the best part of all this is?" "What?" "You're going to inspire others. Other humans will see what you did. They will see that different species can be family, that we can care for each other across all the boundaries we have built." She gestured around the room, where humans and Vrakshi were still talking together. "This is just the beginning." Commander Hajun approached them with Taeyang at his side. The two leaders had become something like friends over the past few days. "Dohyun," Hajun said, "I have been talking with the Vrakshi Council. They want to establish a formal exchange program, families from both species spending time on each other's worlds, learning, building relationships, and they want it based here," Taeyang added, "at Frontier Station 7 where it all started, where the first pact bond between human and Vrakshi was made. This station will become a symbol," Hajun continued, "of what is possible when we choose to understand each other, when we choose love over fear." Dohyun felt overwhelmed. "I do not know if I am ready for that. To be a symbol. I just wanted to help the cubs. That is exactly why you are perfect for it," Taeyang said. His deep voice was gentle now. "You did not help them for glory. You did not help them for politics. You helped them because it was right, because they needed you. The galaxy needs more of that," Hajun said. "More people who do what is right just because it is right. You showed us it is possible." Over the next weeks, the station transformed. More Vrakshi ships arrived, bringing families who wanted to meet the human who had saved the cubs. Human ships came too, carrying scientists and diplomats and families curious about their alien neighbors. Dohyun found himself at the center of it all. Teaching humans about Vrakshi customs, teaching Vrakshi about human culture, mediating misunderstandings, helping families adjust, always with the cubs nearby, translating when his Vrakshi failed, making everyone laugh with their antics. The cubs themselves became little ambassadors, They spoke both languages fluently. They moved between both cultures with ease. They showed everyone that being different was not something to fear. It was something to celebrate. Nari and Taeyang stayed for a full month before they had to return to their duties. But they came back often, and when they were gone, other pack members stayed with the cubs. The cubs were never without Vrakshi family, and they were never without Do-hyun. One evening, Do-hyun stood in the observation deck again, the same place where Nari had first talked to him about being family. But this time he was not alone. Minho sat on his shoulders. Yejun and Chaeyoung pressed against his legs. Behind them, humans and Vrakshi worked together on station repairs. Children of both species played in the corridors. Families shared meals. Languages mixed in the air. "What are you thinking about?" Minho asked in Vrakshi, then repeated it in human language for practice. Do-hyun smiled. "I am thinking about how strange life is. 3 months ago, I was alone. I thought I would always be alone. I thought I had lost my chance at family when I lost my parents." "You are not alone now," Yejun said firmly. "No," Do-hyun agreed. "I am not alone now. I have you. I have your parents. I have the pack. I have more family than I ever imagined." "Good," Chaeyoung said. She was always the simplest, the most direct. "We keep you. You are ours," Do-hyun laughed. "Yes, I am yours. And you are mine." They stood there together watching the stars, human and Vrakshi, different species, one family. And in the vast darkness of space, on a station that had become a bridge between worlds, something new was being born. Not just understanding, not just tolerance, but genuine love. The kind of love that saw past fur and skin, past claws and soft hands, past language and culture. The love that simply said, "You are mine, and I am yours, and that is enough." And it was. 6 months after that first terrifying night when warriors burst through a docking bay seeking revenge, Frontier Station 7 had become something no one could have predicted. It was no longer just a research outpost on the edge of space. It had become a home, a meeting place, a symbol of what was possible. Do-hyun walked through the corridors that morning, greeting people in 3 different languages now. His Vrakshi had improved greatly, though the cubs still laughed at his accent. He had also started learning the language of the Keth, a bird-like species that had heard about the station and wanted to see if humans and Vrakshi could be trusted. The station had expanded twice to handle all the new residents. There were proper Vrakshi quarters now, with the right lighting and temperature controls. There were human family apartments. There were mixed spaces where both species could work and play together. The cubs had grown. Not much, they were still young, but enough that Do-hyun noticed. Minho was taller. Yejun was braver. Chaeyoung talked more. They split their time between the station and the Crimson Fang, learning from both their families. Today was special, though. Today, something was happening that made Do-hyun nervous and excited all at once. A new ship had arrived. Another derelict. Another distress call. And on that ship there were children. Not Vrakshi this time. A different species. The Thren. Reptilian beings from a distant world. 4 young ones alone and scared after their ship had been damaged. The station crew had rescued them, of course. But the young Thren were terrified of everyone. They hissed and backed into corners. They would not eat. They would not sleep. They just curled up together and shook. Commander Hajun had called Do-hyun to the medical bay. So Young was there, looking frustrated and worried. "I cannot get near them," she said. "Every time anyone approaches, they panic. We do not know what they need. We do not know how to help them." Do-hyun looked through the window at the 4 young Thren. They were small, covered in dark scales, with large eyes that darted around fearfully. His heart ached. He knew that fear. He had seen it before, in 3 small Vrakshi cubs who thought they were going to die alone. "Let me try," he said quietly. Hajun hesitated. "Do-hyun, we do not know if they are dangerous. We do not know their customs. This is not like before." "It is exactly like before," Do-hyun said. "They are children. They are scared. They need someone to show them they are safe." He looked at Hajun. "Please, let me try." Hajun sighed but nodded. "Be careful." Do-hyun entered the medical bay slowly. The Thren children saw him and pressed back against the wall, hissing. He sat down on the floor, far from them. Not approaching, just sitting. Being present, he did not speak at first. He just breathed slowly, calmly. He had learned that frightened creatures could sense fear and tension, so he made himself peaceful, safe. After a while, he started humming, not any particular song, just a gentle sound, soothing, low. The hissing slowly stopped. The young Thren watched him with those big eyes. Curious now. Still scared, but curious. Do-hyun reached into his pocket slowly and pulled out a piece of fruit. Human food, but maybe they could eat it. Maybe they could not. He took a bite himself first, showing it was safe. Then he placed the rest on the floor between them and slid it gently toward the children. They did not take it. Not yet, but they watched it. Watched him, he waited. Patience was the most important thing. He had learned that with the Vrakshi cubs, you could not force trust. You could only offer it and hope it was accepted. The door opened quietly. Do-hyun glanced back and saw Minho, Yejun, and Chaeyoung peering in. They must have heard about the new children. The cubs looked at Do-hyun, asking permission with their eyes. He nodded slightly. The cubs came in, moving carefully like he had taught them. They sat down near Do-hyun, forming a small group. Not threatening. Just there. The Thren children watched them. These were not adult predators. These were children too. Small ones, friendly ones. The cub's fur glowed with warm, peaceful colors. Chaeyoung, always the bravest, chirped softly at the Thren. A friendly sound. The Thren tilted their heads, listening. Slowly, over the next hour, the fear started to ease. One of the Thren children reached out and took the fruit. Ate it carefully, found it acceptable. The others took some too. Minho started talking to them in simple Vrakshi, then tried human language. The Thren did not understand, but they seemed to like the sound. The attempt to communicate. By the end of the second hour, the Thren children had moved closer. Not touching yet, but closer, within reach. One of them, the smallest, reached out a clawed hand toward Chaeyoung. The cub held still, letting the Thren touch her fur. Feel that she was real and soft and safe. So-young watched from outside with tears in her eyes. Hajun stood beside her, shaking his head in wonder. He is doing it again, Hajun whispered. He is saving them. Not just him, So-young said, pointing at the cubs. They are helping. They learned from him. They learned how to be kind to the scared ones. Over the next days, the pattern repeated. Do-hyun spent hours with the Thren children, learning what they needed, what scared them, what made them feel safe. The cubs helped, playing with the Thren young, showing them that this place was good, that these people could be trusted. Other humans and Vrakshi helped too. Yejun came and sat quietly with them. Her warrior strength used to make them feel protected. Nari came when she was on the station and sang to them, the way mothers did. Even Taeyang, the fierce alpha, came and was gentle with them, showing that even the strong could be kind. When the Thren adults finally arrived, searching desperately for their lost young, they found something they did not expect. They found their children healthy and calm, playing with alien cubs, being cared for by aliens who had no reason to help except that it was the right thing to do. The Thren father, a large male named Kez, stood in the doorway of the medical bay and watched his youngest daughter sleeping peacefully in Do-hyun's arms while his other children played. With the Vrakshi cubs nearby, he made a sound that Do-hyun would later learn was the Thren, expression of overwhelming gratitude. Then Kez knelt, much as Taeyang had knelt months before, and bowed his head to Do-hyun. You saved them, Kez said through a translation device. His voice was rough with emotion. We thought we had lost them. We thought they were dead. But you saved them. Do-hyun, still learning, just shook his head. I only did what anyone should do. They needed help. Not anyone, Kez said. Most would have called authorities and walked away. Most would have done the minimum. You did everything. He looked around at the humans and Vrakshi. All of you did everything. That night there was another ceremony. Smaller than the Vrakshi one, but just as meaningful. The Thren had their own way of marking family bonds. It involved shared food and songs and promises. And at the end, Do-hyun found himself with a new title, Nest Friend. One who protects the young. The cubs were thrilled. They now had Thren siblings to play with. The station was even more chaotic, but it was the good kind of chaos. The kind that came from life and joy and too much love to contain. More species heard about Frontier Station 7, about the human who saved alien children, about the place where different peoples became family. They came to see if it was real. If it could work for them too, the station kept growing. New sections were added. New families arrived. Human, Vrakshi, Threnketh, and others, each bringing their own customs, each learning from the others. Not always easy. There were misunderstandings, arguments, cultural clashes, but Do-hyun was always there to help. Along with the cubs, along with the growing number of people who believed that family did not need to look the same, that love could cross any boundary. 1 year after that first terrible night, Do-hyun stood in the new central plaza of the station. It was a huge space now, open to the stars through a transparent dome. Children of 5 different species played together, their laughter mixing into a sound that was purely joyful. Adults from those same species worked together on projects, shared meals, told stories, built friendships that would have been impossible before. Taeyang and Nari stood beside Do-hyun. Their cubs, his cubs, their cubs were leading a game that involved entirely too much running and screaming. Kez was there with his children. Representatives from a dozen other species watched with interest. You started something, Taeyang said quietly. Something that is spreading across the galaxy. Other stations are copying what we do here. Other species are reaching out to each other. I did not start it, Do-hyun protested. I just helped some cubs, Nari laughed. You always say that. But it is not true. You showed us what was possible. You showed us that the barriers we thought were unbreakable could be crossed with simple kindness. The Galactic Council has noticed, Kez added. He had become a regular visitor to the station, using it as a base for his own diplomatic work. They are talking about making Frontier Station 7 an official center for interspecies cooperation. A place where any species can come to learn and grow together. Do-hyun felt overwhelmed again. It happened a lot these days. The sheer size of what had grown from one simple act of compassion. I am just one person, he said. I do not know how to handle all of this. You are not one person, Taeyang said, placing a heavy hand on his shoulder. You are Pack. You have us. You have everyone here. We will handle it together.